Hey, what's up guys? It's Avi. In this video, I'm going to go over how I went from no trucks to 4 trucks and how I'm making 40K plus a month with those trucks. How I do that while not being on the road at all, and how I did that with starting with 0 trucks, not 1 truck. I want to show you the step-by-step process and how you can do it yourself. Man, before I got my fleet running, things were just tough. I was newly married. I was living in an apartment. I had a job that was, paying the bills. Everything was okay. We weren't in a terrible situation, but it just wasn't enough, And then this was right around pre-COVID. So it's like right when COVID hit, inflation hit, things were getting crazy. And that's when I really started feeling a strain on the wallet. And I realized I can't just work a job and provide for my family. Like, I can't do it. I was like, I can't do it. There's no way for me. And housing prices skyrocketed. I mean, I was a 24-year-old guy, newly married. I, wanted to eventually have a kid, and a house in my area was 5-6 times yearly salary, and I would never get qualified for that. And I just, it was a situation where I was just like, I don't want to say I was hopeless financially, but it was so concerning to me. The idea that like I might never be able to provide for my family well and take care of them, and will always be pinching pennies forever, and it'll take me 10 years to try to get a house, and that didn't sit well with me. And I grew up not having a lot with a single mom, and just the idea to put my wife through that and then have to put my kids through that, what I had to deal with, it just was like not an acceptable reality for me. I just refused to do that. And so what I did was, I was already working at a trucking company. I saw what could be made and running, and I decided to go head first, just dive in deep and start a fleet. And so I started with 1 truck. I bought a truck. It was really, really crazy and really expensive, especially because I bought it like right around the COVID craze. And, if you're around trucking a while, like during COVID, equipment was crazy. Logistics in general was making crazy bukus of money during COVID, so it was pretty insane. So anyways, that's kind of my story. And now it's like, man, I'm clearing, essentially more than a whole full-time job just on my fleet and income yearly. And I've been able to buy a house. I was able to get my wife a nice new car. I'm not worried about being able to provide to take care of my son and get groceries and buy toys. Life is just so much different now, financially, now that I have my fleet and I've been able to grow it and scale it a little bit. I'm not a millionaire or anything, but I went from going paycheck to paycheck to being able to buy a house, buy a nice car, looking at real investments, growing my business constantly. It's a completely new world, and it's a new world where I have options to continue to grow, versus when I started I had so little, and there was not a lot of options for me, that I just was like not clear on what I should do. But after a lot of prayer and consideration, trucking and starting my fleet is where I decided to go. I'm very grateful for what God's done in my family and my business, and I know He can do it in other people's. So if you're an owner operator and you've been driving for a while, you're tired of being on the road, and you want to go beyond a paycheck, having to live on the road, live your life while also using the skill set that you've developed, then I think this is going to be really good for you. All right, so I'm going to show you guys how exactly I built this fleet, step by step, how you can do it yourself, and exactly everything I did to do it, and how I'm making 40K plus a month gross on it. So literally all I did was go to Penske.com, Penske used trucks. And there's a lot of debate on what model truck you should get and blah, blah, blah. I don't really care what people's opinions are, honestly. My highest recommendation is Freightliner Cascadia. Those things are like the Hondas, Toyotas of the trucking world. There's a bunch of them. The parts are a lot cheaper than a lot of places, and they last a while. I mean, it's a reason why it's the number 1 pick, essentially almost guaranteed number 1 pick for almost all trucking companies that have large fleets, is because they're easy to work on, parts are cheaper, they don't have a ton of issues. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're pretty reliable, and they're not expensive. So, stroke, Freightliner Cascadia. And I didn't put a zip code or nothing because, you know, I'm looking for the best deal across the country, wherever it is. So we're going to specify heavy duty tractors. We're going to go down to the settings, look up level 1. I would say level 1's probably best, but you could probably do level 2. Level 3, no, don't do that. It's just as is. Cab, any color, doesn't matter. Collision warning, nope. Automatic, which I don't really care. Yeah, I prefer Detroit engine. Horsepower 401 or more. Drive Act 2. So we're just going to specify all our requirements. The trucking I did specifically is in containers. So that's the next part of this. We'll kind of go over the truck first, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But, you know, I got a truck that has 2 axles, you know, heavier duty, heaviest duty you can get, something that is kind of the standard for pretty much all, you know, most semi work. So, and then what we're going to look for is discount, any manager special, current deals, right? And then we're also going to limit the price to, I mean, it's up to your budget on how much you want to spend, but I would say try and get anything under like 30K, honestly, literally, just the cheapest thing. So, and this is the next thing, get day cabs, do local work and get day cabs. You will typically make better money on local work when it comes to fuel. Like if you're looking at actual cost of labor and fuel and wear and tear on the truck, you literally usually make more money on local work. Now, obviously the overall gross is not as high. A sleeper going cross country 24 hours with, you know, 2 guys in it, teams, yes, you'll make a ton of money on the gross, but your margins will probably be thinner. And 2, I find it's a little bit harder, more competitive and more difficult to run a fleet that way. And it's also just not my experience. And on top of that, it's more expensive to get a sleeper and a lot more difficult. This is where I started. I did not have a lot of cash. I had, you know, 15 grand or so. In total, it cost me 25 grand to start, but, you know, that was with 0 trucks. I didn't even have really an LLC yet. So there's a lot to it and stuff, but long story short, I did not have a lot of money. I couldn't get a sleeper. I didn't want to get a sleeper. On top of that, hiring for local work is a lot easier than, over the road. Let's look at some of our options. So we got this 2019 Freightliner, level 2, East Chicago, Indiana. Oh, you know, it's a little, one of the big things here is kind of like looking for rust and stuff. Yeah, that thing's rusted to heck. No way, that's not gonna work. So let's look at this. So that's too many miles. Actually, you know what? Let's also make another limiter for miles. Don't want anything over like 429. So Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah, this seems pretty good. It's crazy. I've never seen the red seats before. Yeah, engine bay looks good. It looks like there's a little bit of rust, but not too much. That's okay. A little bit is okay. And that looks really clean. Yeah, honestly, okay, so DD15 AT, that's not bad. That's all right. 455 horsepower. That's pretty good. Let's see. 2019 collision warning. Yeah, cool. Yeah, honestly, this seems pretty solid. There you go. And it's $29.50 right now. Now, the next thing I would do is I would call my sales guy. I have a contact for a sales guy. His name is Devonte. Super awesome guy. I would ring him up, and I mean, I literally did this like earlier this year. I would ring him up and just say, hey man, I saw this unit 228861 out in Youngstown, Ohio for $29,250. I would just negotiate with him. The big thing is you got to be super savage on these negotiations, because you got to think about it. This is, you know, Penske is not like a normal seller. They're not trying to like get fair market value on their car. Like if I was selling my personal car or one of my trucks, I'd try to get fair market value on it. These guys, Penske is selling their leftover inventory. They've already made profit and all their money on this truck by leasing it out to somebody. And now they're essentially just selling it off to get it off their lot and off their dime for maintenance, and to take that money as a down payment to get new trucks. They don't need this cash. There is no cost floor. Like a dealership has cost floor of how much they can actually sell something and still make money. They've already made that money. I mean, they'll tell you how they have a floor, and they probably do have a floor that their managers have listed as saying the minimum that they're going to sell it for, but they don't have a hard invoice of like, oh, it cost me $27,000. I can't go below it because I'm going to lose money. They don't have that. They've already made their money off this truck. So I'm always really aggressive. So for something like this at 21.25, I would probably ask for like 22. Literally, I'd be like, hey, Devonte, can we do 22? And I'd negotiate from there, and I'd probably settle somewhere around like 24 or 25. I literally just closed on a truck for, I think, 23 or 24. Very similar. It had a little less miles than this, but it was a 2018 with 370,000 or something like that. The next part about this is after that, you know, they'll send you all the information. You got to have the down payment. This is another thing. I would apply for the financing in-house, and they'll kind of do that with you. They'll go over everything, give you all the information, but I would apply with Premier Financing, because one, they're more lenient with their deals when you do in-house financing, because then they're making a little bit of money on the finance. So, and if you're an owner operator that's been running for a few years, which hopefully you have been, hopefully you've been running that owner operator position under a company, not just under your own name. So if you have a company with a, filed LLC, hopefully like a company credit card and, a little bit of history and stuff like that. I mean, you don't need a perfect credit by any means at all. I've been running my company for 4 years now, and it still doesn't have business credit, but I do have multiple loans under my name / business name, and they can see that history. If you have experience, if you've been running for a few years and you have that history, that financial history of making your truck payments and everything like that, or any other payments that's under your business, and you obviously have history of producing an income and making money as an owner operator under your business, then you can go to Premier and they'll actually get you a truck with a pretty low down payment. I'm not even joking. My third truck, not my most recent one, but my third truck that I bought last year, I got the truck for less than $1,000 as a down payment. Less than $1,000 as a down payment. So they can really do some magic. It's pretty incredible. Obviously that's not going to happen every single time, but and that was my third truck with them, so I had history. It was pretty crazy what they're able to do. The next thing we got to do, right? We found the truck, right? And then you'll go through that whole process, and Penske will walk you through it. And it's a lot of emails back and forth, filling out forms, and then when they send them the wire with the information and the wire with the money and for the down payment and everything. Then after that, you'll kind of sit for a couple weeks with Penske. That is, I think the next thing after that you got to find is where you're going to run your truck. My biggest recommendation, again, I'm in the drayage container work. I recommend container drayage for any fleet owner, because one, it's usually local / regional work almost all the time, which like I explained, you get better margins on because you're not spending as much fuel and miles and maintenance. And two, it's always a round trip. You don't have to worry about dispatch being like, oh, where you're going or what's this or what's that. It's always a round trip. And three, it's usually better pay. Containers is, again, in business, the more you niche, the tighter specialty you get, the more money you make. So, I mean, if you want to start a fleet and you have the experience in, government hazmat work, go for it. Government hazmat, high clearance, flatbed work that's oversized. Man, you're probably making $20K a single load, So if you can do that, that's awesome. The more specialized you get, the better money you get. I'm not super duper specialized. I do some, containers and transloads, and I have a couple dry vans that I use with lift gates on them. We do some heavy loads and stuff like that. Nothing crazy. So, there's some specialization, but it's not like super, super, super niche. However, I would say that containers definitely has less competition than just dry vans, because everyone and their mama seems to be in dry vans with a truck and a trailer. So my recommendation, the company I've been working with for a long time, is Evans Delivery. Essentially, they're kind of like a Landstar. You could also just work for Landstar. And the reason why I recommend, as a fleet owner / owner operator with, building a fleet, to not just start your own company is because, oh my gosh, insurance rates. Oh my gosh. These insurance rates will put you out of business. It's insane. It's just unoperable unless you're getting really good rates, but the rates just aren't really there right now. And so what do? We have to minimize costs. The way we minimize costs is by operating under another company like Landstar or Evans Delivery, because they have massive fleet rate fuel and insurance. So when you join them, you get their discount fleet rates of insurance and fuel, and that saves you a lot of money, and it's definitely worth it. Intermodal drayage, they have their ads all here. Our services, let's see, Service Locator. So just go to Service Locator, and oh wow, they actually have a location in California. They never worked in California. Anyways, sorry, separate. They're pretty much all over the central, south, and east coast. If you're essentially in this half of America, then you can find someone to work for, and they can get you some work. Every location's run different. They're run by independent owners, like a franchise. So, not every location will be amazing. My experience has been really good though, with my experience here in Dallas. So I highly recommend it. So reaching out to one of these guys, and then you'll be able to essentially save a lot of money on insurance. Call them up, interview them, ask them about their rates, ask them if they're hiring. Containers are a seasonal industry. You know, there's peaks and there's troughs, and the winter tends to be a slower season. So they may or may not be hiring at that point. If not, just call another location. And honestly, if you tell them you're a fleet, in your growing fleet, they might still be really interested, even if they're not necessarily hiring, they might be really interested to still talk to you. And you know, just get their rates, see what they pay, you know, compare rates for, you know, what's expected and stuff like that. And then once you're set up with, you know, Ace Drayage in Kaufman, Texas, or whoever, or AH Harwall in Houston, you know, they'll start sending you work. So now the next thing, obviously, we got the truck, we found where we want to work. There's a sign up process and application with every company. If it's a Landstar, a local place, or an Evans Delivery, that's going to be a whole separate thing that you'll have to do. However, the next thing though, besides we got the truck, we know where we're going to run. Now we just need another driver. I just go to ZipRecruiter. Literally, that's what I use. I have an account with them. So you see here all my job postings, that I've used for listings: intermodal, local, regional driver, CDL Class A truck driver, regional truck driver Class A, local truck driver CDLA. Lots of different views, lots of different applications. This is not super cheap. I would say, you know, probably anticipate $500 to $1,500 to find a driver. I mean, if you know guys, or, you know, word of mouth, that also works too. I usually will give someone $250 or $500 as a commission if they get me a driver that sticks around with me for at least 2 months. Once you get some, you know, feedback, some applicants, you do the interviews, talk to them, set expectations. And then once you get someone hired on, man, then you start rolling, and then you start getting settlements. So at least in my case, you know, I don't know exactly how other companies do it, but with Evans Delivery specifically, I get a settlement. So this week was kind of light, 2,400, 2,300 for the week. Yeah, not the greatest week actually, but you know, it's okay. Let's look at another one. Yeah, oh wow, that's a great week. That's a really good week. 44,662 on one truck. It's just a list of everything I've done, all the work my guy did for that week, what we pulled, what we touched, where we went with it, and how much every move paid. And the structure I have with my guys is 35% with $1,000 minimum. That's pretty much what I pay my guys. You're guaranteed a minimum $1,000 a week, 35% of the truck, and pretty much the margins on that way that works is 35% goes to the driver, around 30% or so maybe goes to fuel. So that's 65%. I put around, what is it, $200 a week into a maintenance account for savings. I guess it averages out 150 or so per truck, because some trucks pay more than other trucks anyways, but I probably put maybe 5% into maintenance savings and stuff like that. So that's another 70% total. And then 30%, essentially I use that 30% to cover overhead stuff like emergencies, unexpected additional repairs, if there is one, you know, driver recruitment stuff, reinvesting in the company to buy another truck. I'd probably close out anywhere between, you know, 15 to 20%. So after taxes is probably about 15% is what, you know, I clear out for me to be able to take home every week. That's pretty much how it goes. And this is what I was showing you about the insurance. Look, so driver's log for the week, $650. Bobtail insurance, $8 for the week of bobtail insurance. Fuel road and tax deduction, $5. Driver's legal plan, $3. That's just, you know, if there's an accident, they have lawyers on retainer that cover us. Occupational accident insurance, $35 for the week. Physical damage insurance, $53. Plate deduction. They also, if you have your own plates, then you don't have to worry about that. I use their plates though, so it's like $50. So literally in total, you're looking at, this is insurance. This is all my insurance. That includes $1 million per incident of coverage and a lawyer to defend me if anything ever happens, along with my IFTA stuff and my plates and driver, e-logs, everything. All that's all included, and it's $160 for the week, which is incredible. If I was getting all this stuff just off the market from a Progressive quote, it would easily be triple this. Literally, I'm not even joking. It literally would be triple this. That's why I recommend operating under another company, like an Evans Delivery or a Landstar or something like that. And then you just work. Essentially, you just do the work. You get your guy set up. You have him go through the application, have him set up with a company that you're operating under. You put him in the truck that you have set up with the company that you're operating under, and then you pay him. Make sure you pay him. Be honest, be transparent, be communicative. That's the biggest thing that I always expect. Also, another big thing is communicate with the company you're working with. If you're on top of your driver, on top of yourself, and communicate with the company about expectations, desires, how to make them happy, what do they expect from you and your driver, I have found that one, they will really appreciate you, be more likely to give you more work, and on top of that, you'll create a relationship that is mutually beneficial, as well as a relationship that will give you more space and opportunity to continue to grow your fleet. My trucks are typically clearing anywhere between 500 on a bad week to up to $1,000, honestly up to like $1,400 or $1,500 on a good week. Pretty much all operating expenses when it comes to insurance, driver pay, fuel, and insurance and stuff. It's anywhere between $500 to $1,500 a week that each truck is clearing. So that's $3,000, $6,000 right now. So anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 is what we're clearing. And it's pretty amazing. And I'm not in a truck. I'm not running. I'm at home. I'm hanging out with my son. I'm hanging out with my wife. So it really is incredible and powerful what can happen if you communicate, you manage your guys, you manage expectations for your team and the company, and you just show up and do your work. It really is powerful. And literally within 3, 4, 5 months, probably have the money to get another down payment on another truck. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it just because you don't want to over leverage yourself. But if the work is steady and you got good drivers for you, you could literally go from owner operator to +3 trucks in like 1 year. Honestly, you can literally get the down payment for another truck every like 2 months. When it's one truck, it's a little harder because obviously it's just you and one truck and you're living off your salary, and then there's one truck that's making money and you're saving that money. And so let's say you're making $500-$600 a week, so that's like $2,000 a month. So yeah, it would probably take you like 3 or 4 months to get another down payment and an extra cushion to be able to reinvest and get another truck. So 4 months in, you get another truck. It's operating on the 6th month. So let's say it takes you another month and a half to get it from purchase to up and running. So that's 6 months. Now you have 2 trucks running. Now what was $2,000 a month, now you're making $4,000 a month. And so $4,000 a month, essentially now you have the down payment and money for a third truck now in like 2-3 months. So now at that point you're at 8-9 months deep, and now you're buying your third truck, and then you got that up and running. Yeah, it's pretty insane. It's really crazy. So now you don't want to overextend yourself, because in trucking there are slowdowns. There are slowdowns that come for a couple weeks to a month or 2 at a time, and you got to have the cushion to be able to get through those and then make more money when work comes up. So you never want to overextend yourself to the point where you're having to sell a truck or, trying to get in crazy debt and stuff like that. However, there is real ability and real opportunity that you could get to 3 trucks in a single year. That being said, it took me 2 years to get to 4 trucks. So, I did also buy a few trailers, and I bought a house, and that was a lot of the money for down payments and stuff like that. I bought the trailers cash, and I had the down payment for the house. So I spent a lot of money on that. I bought a car. So, I started spending some money on personal stuff and not necessarily just buying more and more trucks, because it was getting to the point where I felt like 4 was like, I think I'm ready to start paying off some truck notes, and then also, actually collect some cash instead of just always buying more and more trucks. So that's pretty much the meat of it. That's how I went from 0 trucks to 4 trucks, making $40,000 plus a month. And honestly, now you have 2 options. You can take this information and go out and do it yourself, which would be great. However, 90% of the people that are going to choose that are just not going to do anything, or they'll take a look at it, try, realize it's super difficult, kind of confusing and stressful, and they don't have the experience managing it, and they decide they don't want to do it and will just quit. 10% of those people might actually get it done. That's awesome. Great for you. Your other option is to let me help you out with my Fleet Boss program, where you'll get mentorship, help, guidance. You'll get connected to my sales guy, how to work with him and get a good deal, meeting on a weekly basis, talking over KPIs and what to do and how we can maximize our income, and how we can get help, insight with driver recruitment and stuff like that. There's a lot to it, honestly, on what we'll be able to do and work together. The real thing is we'll be able to get you from point A, which is I'm stuck in a truck, or I'm paycheck to paycheck to I'm not paycheck to paycheck. I actually have options and I get to see my family. I have confidence in that I can take care of my family, I can provide for my family, and I can actually spend time with my family. And if you're interested in doing that, if you're interested in that location, that lifestyle of being with your family in the trucking sphere, I would love to help you out. So I got links down below that you can check out if you'd like to get in contact.